The Windsor Hotel ballroom glittered with a kind of understated elegance that whispered money rather than shouted it. I stood near the champagne fountain in my carefully chosen black dress, professional but forgettable, exactly how my father preferred me to appear at these events. "Ah, the Nakamura delegation," my father, William Brennan, announced to his circle of associates, his voice carrying that particular tone of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. "Let me introduce my family. This is my son, Marcus, the future CEO of Brennan Industries." Marcus straightened his shoulders, preening under the attention. At 28, he'd been the heir apparent since birth, groomed for leadership despite showing more interest in his golf handicap than profit margins. "And this is my daughter Emma," Dad continued, his hand barely gesturing in my direction. "She helps with filing." Filing. 7 years of strategic planning, 3 years of managing our Asian Pacific operations remotely, and an MBA from Wharton reduced to filing. I maintained my practiced smile, the one that said I was harmless, decorative, and properly aware of my place. Mr. Tanaka, the head of Nakamura Corporation, studied me with dark, intelligent eyes. His team stood behind him. 5 executives I'd been corresponding with for 3 years, though they'd never seen my face. Only my work. "Miss Brennan," Mr. Tanaka said, bowing slightly. "A pleasure to finally meet you." "The pleasure is mine, Tanaka-san," I replied in perfect Japanese, returning the bow at the precise angle required by his status. My father's eyebrows rose slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. "I didn't know you spoke Japanese, Emma." There was so much he didn't know, like the fact that I'd been running our entire Asian Pacific division from my filing room for 3 years, or that the 40% growth in that sector wasn't Marcus's achievement, it was mine. Just a few phrases, I lied smoothly, switching back to English. "I like to make our international guests feel welcome." "How thoughtful," my father said, already dismissing me as he turned back to Mr. Tanaka. "Now, about the Yokohama expansion, Marcus has some excellent ideas." Marcus launched into his prepared speech, the one I'd written for him last week. I watched Mr. Tanaka's expression remain politely neutral as my brother butchered the pronunciation of every Japanese term and confused Yokohama with Osaka twice. I excused myself, ostensibly to check on the catering but really to avoid watching my work filtered through my brother's mediocrity. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone to find several urgent emails from Takeshi Yamamoto, Nakamura Corporation's CFO. EB, his message read, using the initials I'd hidden behind for 3 years. "The presentation is concerning. Is this really the strategy we discussed? Your brother seems confused about basic logistics." I typed back quickly, "Technical difficulties with communication. We'll send clarification tomorrow." "Emma?" A voice behind me made me turn. James Chen, our VP of Operations and one of the few people who knew the truth about my role, stood there looking amused. "Hiding from the festivities. Just checking on a few things," I said, showing him my phone. His expression grew serious. "How long are you going to keep this up? Letting Marcus take credit while you run half the company from the shadows?" "As long as necessary. Your father just introduced you as a filing clerk." To Tanaka. "To the man whose business you've personally grown by 40%. "I know. It's insulting." "It's strategic," I corrected. "Dad's not ready for a daughter in leadership, but the company needs the work done. So I do it quietly." James shook his head. "What happens when Tanaka finds out?" "The Japanese value honesty and relationship building. This deception won't matter if the numbers stay good." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. 3 years of shadow leadership had taken its toll. Watching Marcus accept accolades for my strategies, hearing my father dismiss my contributions, pretending to be less than I was, it was exhausting. We returned to the ballroom where the formal presentation was beginning. Marcus stood at the podium, clicking through slides I'd designed, reading words I'd written, taking credit for relationships I built. "Our success in the Asian market," he declared confidently, "is due to my innovative approach to cross-cultural business." I saw several members of the Nakamura team exchange glances. Takeshi Yamamoto was frowning, studying Marcus with the intensity of someone solving a puzzle. The presentation continued for 20 minutes. Marcus stumbled over the financial projections, confused the supplier contracts, and completely mangled the timeline for the Singapore expansion. Each mistake was like a small cut, death by 1,000 errors. Finally, mercifully, it ended. The applause was polite but lukewarm. My father's jaw was tight. He knew something had gone wrong but couldn't pinpoint what. "Thank you, Marcus," Mr. Tanaka said, rising from his seat. His voice was perfectly courteous, giving nothing away. Most illuminating. However, before we proceed with any decisions about our continued partnership, I have some concerns. The room tense. The Nakamura account represented $50 million annually, nearly 30% of our international revenue. Losing it would be catastrophic. Of course, my father said smoothly. Marcus would be happy to address any concerns. Actually, Mr. Tanaka said, his gaze finding me in the crowd, I would like to hear from Miss Brennan. Every head of the room swiveled toward me. I felt my father's shock like a physical force. Emma? Dad's voice carried a warning. I'm sure Mr. Tanaka meant. I meant your daughter, Mr. Tanaka interrupted, something steel in his tone. The one who helps with filing. I walked to the front of the room, feeling like I was moving through water. 3 years of hiding, of diminishing myself, of playing the supporting role, all about to shatter. What would you like to know, Tanaka-san? I asked in Japanese. I would like to know, he replied in the same language, why the person who has been managing our account for 3 years is standing here pretending to be a file clerk. The room erupted. My father's face went from confused to shocked to furious in the span of seconds. Marcus looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. I don't understand, my father said in English. Emma doesn't manage accounts. She's in administrative support. Mr. Tanaka pulled out a folder, laying it on the podium. These are email communications spanning 3 years, strategic proposals, market analysis, solutions to complex logistical problems. All signed EB, which, unless I'm mistaken, stands for Emma Brennan. That's impossible, Marcus sputtered. I manage the Nakamura account. Those are my strategies. Really? Takeshi Yamamoto stood up. Then perhaps you can explain the reasoning behind the Osaka distribution restructuring. It was quite brilliant. Marcus's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Or, another member of the Nakamura team added, the solution to the regulatory issue in Singapore that saved us $8 million. Silence. I've been wondering, Mr. Tanaka continued, turning back to me, why someone of your caliber would hide behind initials. Now I understand. Your father doesn't believe women can lead. That's not, my father started. Isn't it? Mr. Tanaka's voice was ice. You introduced your son as the future CEO and your daughter as someone who helps with filing. Yet she's the one who's been managing our account, growing our business, solving problems your son doesn't even understand. There must be some misunderstanding, Dad insisted. Emma isn't qualified. I have an MBA from Wharton, I said quietly. Graduated summa cum laude. I speak fluent Japanese, Mandarin, and Korean. I've been managing your Asian Pacific operations for 3 years, generating 40% growth. That was Marcus's achievement. No, I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the presentation system. It wasn't. The screen filled with documents, emails, strategy papers, financial projections, all with tracked changes showing my authorship. 3 years of work meticulously documented. Every major win in the Asian Pacific market for the last 3 years, I said, scrolling through the evidence. My strategies, my relationships, my work. Filtered through Marcus because you couldn't conceive of your daughter being capable of more than filing. The room was tomb silent. Board members I'd known since childhood stared at me like they'd never seen me before. Marcus had sunk into a chair, his face pale. But it was my father's expression that hit hardest, a mixture of disbelief, betrayal, and dawning recognition. You've been deceiving me, he said. I've been saving your company, I corrected. The Nakamura account was failing when I took it over. Henderson Industries was about to poach them. The entire Asian Pacific division was hemorrhaging money. But you'd made it clear that women in our family were meant to support, not lead. So I supported. Invisibly. By lying. By doing what was necessary. Just like you taught me. Results matter, right? Well, here are the results. I clicked to a summary slide. 40% growth. 50 million in retained business. 30 million in new accounts. All while being paid as an administrative assistant. Mr. Tanaka cleared his throat. Brennan-san, I believe I was clear in my message last week. Nakamura Corporation will be moving our account. My father's face went gray. Mr. Tanaka, please. We can discuss. Unless, Mr. Tanaka continued as if Dad hadn't spoken, Emma Brennan is named as our account manager. Not unofficially. Not behind the scenes. Publicly, with the title and compensation her work deserves. That's blackmail, Marcus burst out. That's business, Mr. Tanaka replied calmly. We invest in competence, not chromosomes. Your sister has proven her worth. You have proven only that you can read her words badly. The board would never approve. My father started. The board would never approve losing $50 million in revenue. Harrison Walsh, our chairman, interrupted from his table. William, I think we need to discuss this. Immediately. The next hour was chaos. Board members huddled in corners. My father and Marcus retreated to a side room with several executives. Guests murmured and gossiped. The gala transformed into the most dramatic business event of the year. I stood on the balcony, letting the cool air calm my racing heart. 3 years of secrets, spilled in minutes. The careful balance I maintained, being useful enough to protect the company but invisible enough to protect my father's ego, shattered beyond repair. That was quite a revelation. I turned to find Mr. Tanaka beside me, his expression thoughtful. I apologize for the deception, Tanaka-san. It was never meant to. He held up a hand. I've known for 6 months. I stared at him. What? Takeshi recognized your writing style. We investigated. E.B. Emma Brennan. Not a difficult puzzle. He smiled slightly. We were curious how long you would maintain the charade. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see what your father would do when faced with the truth. Would he embrace your talents or cling to his prejudices? He sighed. I have daughters, Emma-san. Brilliant women who face similar battles. I had hoped your father would prove me wrong about American corporate culture. And now we wait. Either Brennan Industries evolves or it loses our business. Simple. Through the glass doors, I could see my father emerging from his meeting. His face was set in hard lines, aging him a decade. He scanned the room until he found me, then walked onto the balcony. Mr. Tanaka, could you give us a moment? Dad's voice was controlled, professional. Of course. Emma-san, I look forward to our official partnership. Mr. Tanaka bowed and withdrew. Silence stretched between my father and me. 28 years of relationship, and we'd never been here before. Past pretense, beyond roles, just truth hanging in the air like smoke. Vice President of Asian Pacific Operations, he said finally. That's what the board approved. Effective immediately. And Marcus will be reassigned to domestic sales, where his enthusiasm might be better suited. I nodded, waiting. You made a fool of me, he said, his voice tight, in front of clients, competitors, everyone. You made a file clerk of me, I replied, despite my qualifications, my proven results, my dedication to this company, because I'm a woman. I was protecting you. The business world is brutal. I know. I've been succeeding in it for 3 years while you weren't looking. His jaw worked. Your mother warned me this would happen. Said I was too stuck in old ways. Too proud to see what was in front of me. Mom had died when I was 15, but her voice still echoed in moments like this. She'd run her own design firm, small but successful, constantly battling my father's condescension disguised as concern. She was right, I said simply. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him. She usually was. Another silence. Inside the gala was resuming some semblance of normalcy, though clusters of people still whispered and pointed. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to see you as this, whatever you've become. I've become what you raised me to be, just not in the package you expected. Vice President, he said, testing the words. My daughter, the Vice President. Your daughter, the one who saved the Nakamura account. Twice. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Your mother would be insufferably proud. Good. He turned to go, then paused. The Singapore proposal on Marcus's desk. That's yours too. All of it. It's brilliant. I know. This time his smile was real, if pained. We'll need to discuss salary, benefits, real ones, not the administrative pittance you've been accepting. James Chen has a proposal prepared. He's been advocating for this for 2 years. Of course he has. Dad shook his head. How many people knew? Everyone who bothered to look past their assumptions. He absorbed that, then straightened his shoulders, the William Brennan who'd built an empire from nothing, preparing for battle. There will be pushback. Board members who think like I did. Clients who aren't as progressive as Tanaka. Employees who've never seen a woman in real leadership here. I've been leading from the shadows for 3 years. At least now I can do it in the light. It won't be easy. It never has been. He studied me, really looked at me for perhaps the first time. Not as his daughter, not as a subordinate, but as what I'd made myself into despite his limitations. Vice President Emma Brennan, he said formally, extending his hand. Welcome to the leadership team. I shook his hand, firm and professional. Thank you. Now, should we go salvage what's left of the gala? I believe you have a new organizational structure to announce. We walked back into the ballroom together. The conversation stopped, all eyes tracking our movement. At the podium, my father cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an additional announcement. It seems Brennan Industries has been benefiting from hidden talent. Effective immediately, Emma Brennan will serve as Vice President of Asian Pacific Operations. The applause was scattered at first, then grew as Mr. Tanaka and his team stood, clapping deliberately. James Chen whistled. Even some board members, seeing which way the wind was blowing, joined in. Marcus sat alone at his table, staring at his untouched champagne. I'd deal with my brother later. 3 years of taking credit had left him unprepared for actual responsibility. We both have to figure out who he really was without my work to hide behind. Additionally, my father continued, his voice gaining strength. I owe you all an apology, and my daughter an even bigger one. It seems my old-fashioned views have been costing this company its best asset. That changes now. He found me in the crowd. Emma, would you say a few words about your vision for the Asia-Pacific division? I walked to the podium, no longer invisible, no longer diminished. The microphone felt like vindication in my hand. Thank you. I began in English, then switched to Japanese. Tanaka-san, arigato gozaimashita. Thank you for everything, not just the ultimatum, but for seeing me when my own family couldn't. I outlined my plans: expansion into Southeast Asia, partnerships with emerging tech companies, supply chain innovations that would cut costs by 20%. No more filtering through Marcus, no more hiding behind initials. Just competence, finally acknowledged. When I finished, the applause was genuine. Mr. Tanaka approached the podium. Nakamura Corporation is pleased to not only maintain but expand our partnership with Brennan Industries, he announced. We look forward to working with Vice President Brennan directly. Officially. $50 million retained, plus the promise of more. All because one man believed women could lead and forced another to confront his prejudice. The rest of the evening blurred. Congratulations, questions, barely veiled curiosity about how I pulled off such a deception. I handled it all with the same skills I'd used to manage million-dollar accounts: grace, precision, and just enough steel to remind them I'd earned this. Near midnight, as the gala wound down, I found myself alone with James Chen. So, he said, grinning, how does it feel to finally be yourself? Terrifying, I admitted. Exhilarating. Exhausting. Worth it? I thought about 3 years of hiding, of diminishing myself, of accepting less than I deserved. Then I thought about the future, my name on my work, my ideas and my voice, my achievements finally, indisputably mine. Ask me in a year, I said. But we both knew the answer. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the battle was against your own family's limitations. Even if victory came not through confrontation, but through quiet competence that eventually became too big to ignore. I was done filing. It was time to lead. And despite everything, or maybe because of it, my father was finally ready to let me.